My John Deere 318 with the Briggs and Stratton 23 horse Vanguard is all done. Since the last video, I repainted the sheet metal in the hood and also wrapped up some loose ends like installing the seat, the tail lights, the headlights, and some of the other details like the grille and the medallion. I have about 3.5 hours on this engine just driving around, trying it out. And some things I've noticed between this and the Onan that I took out. Number one, this Vanguard seems to be just as smooth as the Onan was. With the small engine warehouse muffler, it's a little bit quieter overall. At higher RPMs, I think this is actually a little bit smoother than the Onan, but at low RPMs it feels like it's about the same. The power feels like it's quite a bit more with this V-twin, especially I'm not running any implements, but just driving up hills at like lower RPMs, it seems like this engine doesn't bog down as much as the Onan did. It starts very easy, but even when it's just moderately cold, it does require a choke to start, whereas the Onan would tend to start pretty well regardless of temperature. So it's not that this has a hard time starting, it's just that the choke is needed more when you start this compared to the Onan. The rear mount radiator has done a good job keeping up with the hydraulic temperature and the oil temperature as well. And I don't have a means to measure the oil temperature, but I know with the fan off, you cannot touch this loop here, and this is the oil cooling loop. With the fan on, you can touch it. So the difference is probably 40 or 45 degrees in oil temperature. And one nice benefit of this radiator I noticed is the hydrostatic fluid gets warmer quicker, so it doesn't whine as much when it's cold. So normally the hydrostatic fluid would be a little bit louder until it reaches temperature. So since the oil is in this loop here, it heats the hydrostatic fluid to the operating temperature quicker. And then I leave the fan on once it gets hot enough to keep things from getting too hot. Another added benefit of the radiator is when you're done, you can run this at like a lower RPM, but still keep the fan on, and that'll help cool off the engine before you shut it down a little bit. I still need to solve a battery mount. I have to put a bracket on that. But aside from the battery mount and the foot treads, this tractor is all done. The seat is a generic seat. It has holes in the back for the armrests. I wasn't planning on getting the armrests, but since the seat has the mounting holes, I think I will. One thing I added is cork underneath the springs, because these tend to really scrape up the seat pan as you slide it back and forward. So with the cork and some grease underneath, if you wanted to slide this, you could without scratching the paint. So that's just a superficial thing I added because I happen to have the cork. And one fun thing I added was some extra lights underneath the tractor, which I'll show here a little bit later when the sun goes down. So I'll start it up now that it's all done with the engine covers on. You can hear what it sounds like. So a little bit of choke, even though it's sitting here in the sun. It's not warm, it's still a relatively cold start. I need to adjust the linkage a little bit because it's trying to creep forward. So that's a low RPM. And I'll turn on the fan. You might be able to hear it. One nice thing with this Briggs & Stratton is it seems to have more horsepower at low RPMs, so you can actually cruise around with the engine at idle speed. So right now the engine is all the way down at idle speed, and I'm not working it hard at all right now, but it'll still keep up. And this is the other side of the tractor. Okay, I'll wait for it to get a little bit darker outside, and I'll go over some of the fun stuff I did with the lights. On this 318, I reinstalled factory lights for the headlights. These are regular bulbs. The reflectors are painted silver, and I polished the lens to make it clear again. And the back has new factory style taillights, all incandescent bulbs. And it actually does a very good job of lighting up the area in front of the tractor. But for fun, I decided to do something a little different on this 318. Because after all, a project like this is really meant just to have a lot of fun with. So I decided to put underbody green LEDs underneath this 318 for no other reason than just to have fun. And these lights are LED strip lights. They get 12 volts directly, so they're all wired up in parallel. They're strip lights, so they just have adhesive on the back, like double-sided tape. You stick them on and wire them up. And of course, they're all wired in parallel. There's 2 strips under each foot rest. 1 strip underneath the hitch, and 1 strip underneath the front bumper, which does a great job of lighting up the remotes, which is pretty neat. So with the underbody lights and the factory lights, this is what it looks like. The underbody lights are LED, like I said, so they probably take less than 4 or 5 watts, maybe 1 amp, not even, probably closer to like 1/4 of an amp. And like I said, I just put them on there to have fun with this tractor. So if you're working on a 318 or thinking about doing an engine swap and you have any questions about what I did, please don't hesitate to ask. A real fun part of this hobby is talking to other people and seeing how they accomplish the same type of thing. And if you think that you need to put underbody LEDs underneath your tractor, I think you should 100% go for it. If for no other reason, then it's just something fun to do, even if it is totally unnecessary. This tractor belongs in the next Too Fast, Too Furious franchise movie. Okay, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, please let me know.